Wow, that feels amazing. They do say nothing feels like a Mizuno, and I can assure you that these new range of Mizuno Pro irons feel every bit as good as every Mizuno I've ever hit, if not better in some regards. Today I'm just going to introduce you to the three models. I'll go through them one by one, show you what each of them are meant to do, then we'll have a look to see if they actually do it, and then at the end I will tell you which model I have already ordered for my bag for this year, and I can't wait for them to arrive. They're absolutely fantastic. Let's get stuck in. So the first model is the Mizuno 241. The first part of the number, 24, is just the year, 2024. So the model 241 is their bladed, most neat and compact blade that Mizuno have ever made. So it's a touch smaller in overall head size, giving it more maneuverability. The smaller the head, the better the feel as well. So every bit of Mizuno feel is in this head here. I'll just show you it in close-up form. There's the back of it. The very thin bottom edge, and just beautiful Mizuno looks all around. This year, the changes that have been made, the weight has been a little bit more centered behind the impact area of the club, again increasing feel, and the sole width is the same, but the bounce angle is slightly greater. Now, for you and me, that means that it's going to interact better with the turf. There's less chance of a fat shot, which is great news. But like any blade, there's no other bells and whistles, there's no hollow compartments, no tungsten weights, nothing at all. And if you do not hit the middle of the club or very close to it, you're not going to get a lot of help from this club. It's not that forgiving. Some people like that. Some people love to know and have the instant feedback of them not hitting the middle of the club, but it does result in quite a big drop off in ball speed and therefore how far the ball goes. So I've been hitting a few shots of this. I mean, it is utterly beautiful to hit. Feels like hitting a bit of wet butter, which you'd expect from Mizuno. But when I've missed the middle, and I tend to catch the ball slightly low and off the toe, if anything, the ball speed drops off. And this is a 161 yard carry to the flag, par 3 over water. And you can see in the top right there, the red dots. I've actually failed to make the putting surface on 3 or 4 of the shots there where I've not caught the middle of the club. So in terms of playability, is this what you want with your game? Do you like the feedback? Are you willing to put up with bad shots or bad results from a shot that wasn't that far off the middle? That's the sort of questions you're going to have to ask yourself, but ultimately they do look amazing and the feel of them is something else. So I'll hit one, see if I can get one to carry. Okay, not quite off the middle, needs to go a bit. Excellent. Okay, so it just carried onto the putting surface, but that really wasn't very far off the middle, just felt a little bit heavy. And I really wish I found the middle of the club often enough to make this a viable choice for me. But as you'll see in the figures in a minute, they're not for me. You can blend them, so you could have these in the lower part of the bag, and you could go for something more helpful in the top end of the bag, but wait till you see the next model, because that sort of problem is covered with the next set. So the next model in the range is the 243. This sits in the middle here, and it's probably the most interesting set for me in that it's a blended set within a set. So what I mean by that is the 8-9 wedge and gap wedge in this set of irons is a solid forged piece of metal. But then when you go 7-6-5-4, you'll find that there's a micro slotted cavity, which you can't see, and then weights are applied inside the head. They're able to move the center of gravity away from the face, giving you a much bigger sweet spot and a higher launch, making the long irons easier. It's also a slightly different metal from the 7 iron down to the 4 iron as opposed to the short iron. So you end up with a scoring end of the bag and a helpful end of the bag, as I call it. So a blended set within a set. And I think this has got a lot of future for most golfers who, once they get to 150 yards in, are looking to score, but from outside 150 yards, probably more focus is on a decent strike than actually getting it close to the flag. I think that's a fair shout. So this looks exactly like this on the back. You can see this is the 7 iron, so it's the first of the irons with a pocketed cavity. There's a little cover over there. Compared to its predecessor, again, there's more weight centered, behind the impact area, increases the feel no end. It's a fractionally smaller blade than the version of this last time, but again, the bounce angle is increased to just facilitate a better strike, and if you were to catch it slightly heavy, the leading edge isn't going to snag as much, therefore it's just going to be more forgiving on those not quite perfect strikes. So really enjoyed hitting this one. We'd expect a little bit more out of this one because of the different type of metal and the fact that there's a cavity. Also, there's 2 degrees less loft on this club than the blade, which because of the higher launch, they've been able to do that, and therefore we get a little bit more distance. Let's see how this one goes. Oh, that feels great. So you'll see, I mean, it's just on the green there. That one's gone past the flag to the back of the green. And both 7-irons, the blade and this one, but you can see it's beginning to make a difference as to how far the ball goes and therefore what choices of club I'm going to have over a period of a season. The shorter club I can use, basically, the better I'm going to be at scoring. So that's the 243. Let's move on to its big sister now, the 245, and see what that can do. Let's move on to the 245 then. This is the big sister to the other two, and you'd be forgiven for thinking that I'd shown you the blade club again, the 241, because it's modelled on exactly the same aesthetics as a blade. For all intents and purposes, it looks like a blade when you first set eyes on it. But inside the club head, there's a lot going on. Every single one of the 245s throughout the set, from wedge right down, is hollow. But there's been so much acoustic engineering gone on within the head that you honestly can't tell. I was surprised to hear they were hollow this time around, because the feel is exactly the same as I got off the fully solid bladed club, which is amazing. Again, a slightly harder metal than the blade, but it's still forged. That gives a bit more ball speed. And because it's a wider sole and a bigger head, they've been able to move the weight away from the face, hence increasing the sweet spot, and also moving the weight down nearer to the ground, increasing the launch, making them even easier to hit. There's also been a 50% increase in the amount of tungsten in the head. So again, just pulling that sweet spot bigger and bigger and bigger across the face, at the same time as making the head fractionally smaller. So these now are going to appeal to much, much better players. In fact, Luke Donald last night on social media just revealed his what's in the bag, and he has changed from blades, which he's used forever, up to these for this playing season. That's how close to a blade they look and perform. But as he's getting older, as I am, the extra distance is very, very welcome. So again, less loft than the previous two models, just coming down a fraction, going to give us more ball speed, going to give us a bit of a longer shot. And when you couple that with the forgiveness, the feel and the sound and the looks of a Mizuno, this is going to be hard to beat. This will be on everyone's wish list this year, I fancy. So let's have a bit of fun with the 245. That's a really good example. I absolutely missed that one. Completely out the toe and off the bottom, and it's still gone as far as my 243, which I absolutely killed. And that would mean I got away with murder there. Carried that, what did I carry that? Nearly 170 yards off a pretty poor miss hit. Let's see if I can find the middle of one. There we are. So you'll see this one will airmail the green and go straight into the bunker at the back. And you can see now, just because I've used this hole here, the bladed 7-iron was struggling to get to the front edge. The 243 was just past the flag. That's the green dots on the screen there. And most of the blue dots you can see, unless I missed the strike, are in the back bunker. So that's going to be a big change to which club you're selecting on different holes. And again, I think for scoring purposes, for those of you who struggle for distance a little bit, but love good looking golf clubs, this is going to be really, really hard to beat. So let's have a look at the numbers now and see if it actually backs up what Mizuno are saying. And then we'll finish up. I'll hit a few shape shots for you and tell you which clubs I've chosen for my bag this year. So let's have a quick whiz through the numbers. Not too long, so I know it's boring for some people, but I find it quite interesting. The three model heads are here, the blade, the mid cavity, and then the hollow one at the bottom. Ball speed, as we'd expect, slowest off the blade, middle, and then a ridiculously high number off the 245. That's very high for me. I have an average club head speed of around about 86, 87 miles an hour with 7-iron, and that's a very good return. And this one was higher on a lot of shots, but of course the poor shots really drag that average down. And just check out the standard deviations underneath. You can see that the standard deviation is nearly double that of the other clubs. So when you do miss the middle, you get punished more, as we know. Launch angle, pretty much as per the lofts, highest, middle and lowest, totally to be expected. And the backspin is related to the loft. So again, the highest backspin, mid and low. Anything over 5,000 is playable with a 7-iron and is likely to want to stop. I prefer something in the high 5,000s, which I'm getting with the middle one here. And then the blade obviously is going to be the spinniest. Carry distances, this is a bit we're all interested in. I carried the blade to 152 on average. There were quite a few in the 157, 58 when I really caught it, because this has been dragged down by my not such good strikes. With the 243 and the 245, the standard deviation was really low. They were really tight, even on off-centre hits. So you can see that for all three being 7-irons, there is a definite difference in what these clubs are going to do. About 10 yards per club as viewed here, with no realistic change in dispersion. If anything, the bigger and more hollow the head of this club has got the tightest dispersion rather than the blade, which is a lot bigger here. So in recap, what have we learnt about these new 3-irons? Well, they all feel great, all the 3 irons here. How are we going to choose which one's most suitable for each player? Well, a lot of that will depend on club head speed, how far you need to hit the ball, want to hit the ball, how much forgiveness will help your game, or do you hit the middle of the club quite often and don't need that forgiveness? First thing to say is the blade is just that, it's a blade. It won't be for everyone. It is beautiful. You've got to kind of like a bit of punishment for bad shots if you're going to go for the blade, but the reward, the upside, is probably the most enviable set of golf clubs anywhere in a bag are going to be yours. So we do have some bladed players here at Woking, and they're going to absolutely love this, being a little bit smaller and neater than before. For me, I don't hit the middle often enough, and as I'm getting older I need a bit more distance than that blade can offer, but I can hope one day. Second one, the 245, who's that going to be suited to? Well, I think this is the set which is going to be for low handicap-ish type players, maybe 12 and below, people who like good looking golf clubs, because they really are good looking, appreciate the feel of a fully forged club, which again, bit old school now, but this is forged with serious science behind it. So there's a bit of everything here. From 8-iron down, don't forget they're solid one-piece forged softest metal golf clubs, so they're going to feel wonderful. And then there's a bit of help in the top end. This is the set that I've gone for. I've played around with all of them. You might ask, well, why didn't you get the extra distance that the 245 offered and the forgiveness? Well, I've cut myself a bit of slack. I used to use blades. I've met myself in the middle, if you like, and I just think that actually if I start hitting a 7-iron 175 yards, which is kind of my average on here, it puts too much stress on my short game, because suddenly my wedge is going to go 145 or 150 possibly, and it leaves me too much to do in the scoring zone. So there is such a thing as hitting it too far, and I believe I don't want my 7-iron to start going that sort of distance, purely because it leaves me with a lot of work to do with very few clubs from 80 yards to 145 yards. So my choice is the 243 for this coming year. And then the 245, well, this is going to be the most popular, I think. It is beautiful. It's had the most upgrades. There's the most science involved with this one. But now that it sounds better, looks better, and then the ball's even hotter off the face than it was last time, I think this is going to be a real winner. It's a little bit more expensive than the others. I don't quite know what the retail prices are going to be yet, but it's a fraction more than the others. But for those who appreciate the finer things, well made, good looking, performs well, with no compromises whatsoever, this has to be worth a hit. So I'm just going to hit a few more. If you want to come and try these before they're launched on the country, please give the shop a ring, because we're fitting them now and people are queuing up at the top of the queue to receive their sets for the upcoming year. Hopefully I'm the very first in the queue, and we will see if it's something that you're interested in. With all Mizuno custom fitting, we don't charge for the fitting. The shaft options, there's about 88 different shaft options that are available without an upcharge, and any grip that you want is, again, no upcharges whatsoever. So what you see is what you get with Mizuno, no hidden costs, and we'll provide our advice for free as well. So I'm going to grab my club, the one that I've ordered. I'm just going to see what I can do in terms of playing a few shots. I'm going to play a draw because I like to move the ball that way about once every 10 years. Well, as little as I can, I just need to make sure it can be done. Yeah, so I feel with this club, it just feels great, but I can maneuver the ball at will much easier than I can with some of the bigger headed, more forgiving models. I mean, that's obviously a sizable draw. That's why I don't draw it, by the way. They tend to get a little bit out of control. But if I wanted to take a few yards off and play a bigger cut, go on then, cut anytime you like. Okay, so obviously a lot shorter, but I've hit a lot of shots with this club, and I can tell you it just feels great, and I can seemingly do various shots with it. I feel as though it's going to give me enough distance to have the whole bag covered. My 4-iron's going to go just over 200 yards, which leads nicely into my hybrid and fairway wood, and I can't wait for them to arrive. So hope you've enjoyed the review. Please let us know if you have any questions, or if you want to come and hit them. You're very welcome to. I'd love your feedback, actually. And I hope you've enjoyed the video. We'll see you next time.